Report. Welcome back. I'm Jon Kelly. Victoria, BC, Canada, January 22nd, 2011. A major UFO sighting was documented on video by Fritz Stammberger, who runs islandonlinenews.com. Mr. Stammberger has joined us for today's show, and Fritz, thank you very much for being here with us.
Hi, John.
Fritz, tell us from the beginning, getting to know you and the work that you're doing for Island Online News. What's Island Online News all about?
Well, if I could just go into a tiny bit about how I started it or why I started it.
Yeah.
Just take a minute. I was working on a tree farm here in BC on Vancouver Island a couple years ago, where I was outside all day long. And I started to notice that the jets were crossing the sky, leaving huge trails from horizon to horizon. Mm-hmm. Over the day, that would spread out and cover the entire sky. And I watched this for 2 years and filmed it. And I took that footage into all the local news stations here on Vancouver Island, or at least in Victoria. And nobody would touch it. Nobody would even look at it or comment about it. And that's obviously what is referred to as chemtrails, but that now, years later, we know as stratospheric geo-engineering. And so this is why I started Island Online News, was because no one would touch this footage, no one would report about it. Mm-hmm. So I thought, if they won't touch it, I'll just start my own news website and I'll report it myself.
Well, I think that's very interesting. And of course, the chemtrail issue is a global concern. There's been some disclosure by independent reports I've seen on German television and American weathermen who talked about their opinions about these phenomena as military engineering, possibly related to HARP and other kinds of secretive projects. But essentially, we're looking at a scenario where there's massive spraying going on globally. Certainly in Vancouver, we can see this on a regular basis when we have a clear day. Those parallel line clouds aren't natural formations. Anyone who studied the basics of weather when they were going through school realizes that's not cumulus, cumulonimbus, stratus, or any other kinds of traditionally recognized cloud. That's something that's being laid down by airplanes. So it's a matter of tremendous controversy. As you've also mentioned, this is something that's had a limited mainstream discussion in the news outlets. Of course, there are many other important stories to cover, like what Lindsay Lohan did last week or what Paris Hilton might be up to this weekend. So at the expense of our sanity and our intelligence, we've been denied a lot of information, and without independent reporters like yourself, citizen journalists, taking the helm to bring information to public awareness, we would just be lost. I'm sure you're familiar with Clifford Carnicom and many of the other independent researchers in the U.S. who've been discussing this story.
Yeah, and I think that's an interesting point you made, that we were never taught about that in school, about these the massive cloud layers produced by the jets. But it's interesting to note that they actually are teaching it in school now. They're teaching the children that it's just condensation trails, and they produce this sort of they call it like a cirrus shield or a cirrus layer, and they actually are teaching children about it in school now, but calling it natural condensation from the jet trails.
I see. So there's a whole level of deception, and we're raising a generation of ignorant people, at least ignorant with regards to what's really being sprayed. And I'm sure you've read the studies that say that there's toxic materials coming out in those trails. Is that right?
Of course, yeah. And my friend, he mentioned to me that it's interesting now because the younger generation, they can't see it because it's been there their whole life.
They don't know any different. And of course, people who grew up, I was Vancouver born and raised, and there's flight paths over the city for the passenger jets and stuff. And Even the parts of town where I am now, small craft coming in and out of the harbor. It's all pretty normal, but they never left persistent trails that turned into clouds and left, those smears across the sky and ruined the sunny days, what sunny days that we have. So it's been going on for a long time. You got to wonder how many toxins we've all accumulated by breathing that stuff, and what other impacts it may be having on current affairs, such as mass die-offs of fish and birds.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, so anyways, you've taken a stand. You've said, I'm not going to wait for the mainstream media to pursue the stories that I think are important. I'm going to use my access to the internet, produce media for the public consumption, and get my name out there. I think Island Online News is fairly well established on Google. I mean, there's hundreds of pages linking back to you, so I think you've done a great job at a grassroots level of building out your presence. Have you ever received any mainstream media attention for the work you're doing for Island Online News?
No. This is actually the first interview that I've done of somebody interviewing me. But not that I'm aware of. I haven't seen any of my stuff on any mainstream. So
that's yet. Maybe that's coming for you. Maybe you're going to be another Matt Drudge. We'll see how your career develops over time. I'm just going to go up to your website now, because you've covered contrail. What other kinds of stories are you covering for Island Online News?
I follow a lot of Project Camelot's work. Of course, that's Bill Ryan and Carrie Cassidy, and they've been producing videos for a number of years of high-level insiders, essentially work for the black budget projects in the government or international governments, and they come forward after they sort of defect from the Illuminati, basically, and so they reveal what information they can, and I've been following their work for a number of years. I've actually interviewed Carrie Cassidy, and basically sort of the alternative stuff, the UFOs, the chemtrails, the fluoridation of the water. Monsanto's a big one, of course, with the genetically modified crops and seeds and what they're doing, and I think that ties into a lot of what's going on with the chemtrails and the other stuff. Usually ties back to one of these mega corporations like Monsanto and their evil plans of world domination, if you will.
All right, so like military-industrial governmental complex.
Exactly. Military-industrial educational complex. I like.
Very good. So definitely, I mean, there's a lot of cutting-edge news on islandonlinenews.com. So a great place to visit, not only for folks who are residents to Vancouver Island, but people anywhere who are concerned about these issues. Fritz is doing an excellent job of bringing the stories together in one place and providing a Canadian perspective on many of them. So the UFO issue, of course, is one of the controversies of our time and of previous generations. There are people who feel that President Obama may have some role in disclosure. We know that national governments have been releasing their UFO documents from different parts of the world, and so that they're coming to the table and openly saying, yeah, we've been involved in UFO research, we've used our resources and our taxpayer dollars to pursue this line of research, we've kept it secret from the public, now we're putting it on the table. The United States has yet to really come forward in an official capacity, although there's leaks and disclosures. As you said, individuals will go to outlets such as Project Camelot, Project Avalon, to bring their stories forward to the public. What is your feeling about the pace of disclosure and where that's leading us?
Well, from my point of view, I'm no longer really concerned about a government disclosure, because anything they do eventually tell us, how would we ever know if it was true or not? It could be when they do their disclosure, it's just complete lies. We'll never know if it's their projects, if it's aliens, if they've created the aliens. Or how all this ties together. So I'm not even looking to them as a source of truth. I'm more interested in individuals that are working on their own, that may have contact, that may be having sightings or doing their own thing, that are not even affiliated with the government. And I would look to them more as a source for truth and what's going on, rather than the official line.
All right, so instead of waiting for the government to come clean, if that will ever happen, we're going to invest our stakes in the small individual researcher with some ambition and initiative who goes out into the environment, has an experience, can document it or get witnesses together and bring that to the public. And this is going to become the avenue for people who are tired of waiting. In our generation, the avenue is going to become the small researcher who takes a grassroots initiative to go out and find the answers for themselves and can produce some kind of documentation. In your case, you're using a video camera. Do you have experience with UFO witnesses and people with other kinds of experiences, related experiences, approaching you from Vancouver Island? Do you have contacts on the island who are having these kinds of experiences?
Well, out here on Vancouver Island, I think that about 95% of people that I talk to have witnessed UFOs. Mm-hmm. Basically, everyone I know has seen at least one UFO out here.
So it's really part of the cultural background on the island, and I think on the Gulf Islands as well, is that there's a common understanding about these phenomena. In other words, because people are encountering them in their day-to-day experience, and I'm not talking about 24 hours a day, but for people to, for you to say that people, at least once in their life, something happened like that. It's part of the natural environment. What do you think about what's the hypothesis about the origins of the UFO phenomena? Where are they coming from? Are they from here? Are they from somewhere else? What do you feel might be the answer to that question?
It's a very good question, and there's a number of hypotheses. Angels, demons, human craft, alien. They could be extra-dimensional, extraterrestrial, extra-temporal, as in time travelers. Mm-hmm. I was talking about this with a friend of mine last night, and I said, is it angels? Is it demons? Is it humans? Is it aliens? And the best answer that we actually came up with was that it's probably demons influencing humans to look like aliens or angels.
Really?
So, I mean, it's sort of a multi-dimensional answer.
But why would you subscribe to the demon theory as the most likely answer?
Well, I do know that, if you do any level of serious research, you come to the sort of high-level involvement in occult practices, with the Bohemian Grove, with Satan worship, child sacrifice, unfortunately. This is what you come to at the very high levels in our society of what people are actually into.
Well, right. So we appreciate that there's a trend. There's a trend at high levels of power. The elite members of society are also into black magic, and that and a lot of destructive practices. That's part of the mix of what we've inherited in society. But why would the UFOs have to reflect that?
Well, there's the hypothesis of the unifying everyone under the pretense of a alien invasion. If you could unify everyone, if you could fake an alien invasion so that everyone would unify around a central government, and that way they could centralize the power into a one world government with the pretext of an alien invasion.
All right. So as you say, that there's a conspiracy to fabricate an event, call it an alien invasion, and this is what I think Dr. Carl Rosen was told by Werner von Braun on his deathbed. He said that there'll be all these pretexts to creating a police state. First, it would be terrorists, and then it would be UFOs. Would be the problem. We all had to change society and change the rules. Because of, but again, this is like a human-led initiative. What if the ETs have their own initiatives, and we're just finding out what that might be?
That could be a possibility, and like I said, at this point, it's so hard for us to discern. And I'm asking you, how will we ever know?
Well, I guess it's this path to personal knowledge and self-discovery, like through direct experience. Would it be possible for someone to discern the answer to these questions? And I guess what we're agreeing is that at this point in the game, for either one of us, anyways, we're still attempting to fathom the answer to that question. I mean, certainly, I mean, your evidence shows that you're a witness now to a major sighting. Something happened right in front of you, in your visible from your neighborhood. So, you're certainly established in that level of contact. We're going to go into further questions about the levels of contact that you're experiencing as we get into the interview. But right now, I think it's just important to sort of set the baseline. You know, we're here in the Pacific Northwest, you know, or the southwestern British Columbia, Canada region. And here, it's not uncommon for individuals to have sightings and reports of mysterious events. Of course, under good sky conditions, there's you can see lots of meteors here, and there's satellites that fly overhead, and those are visible as well. But beyond that, there's lots of documentary evidence. People like Dorothy Isett, who had accumulated 30 years of 8mm UFO footage from her residence in Richmond, British Columbia, in the Vancouver area. I mean, it's undeniable that she was recording something. She isn't the only one who saw what we're seeing today. It's just, of course, with the common availability of camera equipment, you know, consumer cameras, night shot cameras, more people can replicate those kinds of results and make new discoveries. Fritz, why don't you talk a little bit about the setup that you're using, the camera equipment that you're recording with? Can you tell us what that system is?
Yeah, I will get to that in a second. I wanted to just mention briefly about a sighting I had in 2007 over Oak Bay.
Oh, really? Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
There's another one on there on YouTube, and I'm sure it has a couple 100,000 hits by now.
Wow, okay.
It's really controversial, but with that one, I was filming with a 3CCD camera with a really good zoom on it. I wasn't actually filming; it was a friend of mine standing on my boat, and that one was filmed with a really good camera, really clear, close up, and low flying object.
And this is Oak Bay?
Pardon?
Oak Bay?
Yeah, in Oak Bay. That one's on YouTube under the title "A Real UFO Sighting."
Well, actually, I've seen that's an incredibly compelling shot. I've actually watched this video. I saw it, you know, closer to the time when it came out. So you were involved in that sighting. You were there.
Yeah, if you watch that video, at the first few seconds of the video, there's two people rowing away in a small boat. That was me and a friend rowing to the shore. I was dropping her off, and so the two guys on the boat that filmed the video were my two other friends that were using my camera.
Wow, that is a sensational video. And so for listeners who haven't seen that one, Fritz, again, what's the title on that video?
A Real UFO Sighting. It might be a real UFO sighting Oak Bay or a real UFO sighting Victoria, British Columbia. I can't remember the exact title.
That's an incredible visual for sure. I mean, you guys were there. It happened. I mean, the visuals are incredible. And you know, definitely one of my longtime favorite YouTube videos. So it's amazing that I'm catching up with you to speak with one of the people who was there.
Well, and of course, I edited that and added the music, and to much people's dissatisfaction, I get a lot of comments on the music on my videos. Some people don't like it.
Why don't you step back then? Tell me about the Oak Bay experience. What were your perceptions? What was in your mind? What was going on at that time? What did you think was happening?
Well, this is interesting because every time I think of one of these incidents that's already happened, there's something just prior to it that led to it. But that one, we were really sort of stunned at that one. That was a major sort of. It was a fast flyby. There was no wind. It went directly over my head. So I actually, during that one, I experienced a little bit of fear because I could see the object sort of a few miles off, and as it approached very rapidly, it came directly over my head in the small rowboat. So I did experience a little bit of fear, wondering what it was going to do, if it was going to do something, but it just sort of kept on clipping by right overhead and off into the distance, and we were just sort of stunned. I was sort of speechless. The guys on the boat, they had a little more to say. But actually, just the day before that happened, I actually filmed what I believe is the same UFO over downtown Victoria. But then on that day in Oak Bay, as we were sailing around the tip of the island, I accidentally recorded over that footage of what I believe is the same object from the day before.
All right, so there's actually you've had substantial contact in the past, and what that says to me is that we can expect more UFO sightings and footage from you in the future.
Well, I think so, and I hope so. And I actually, when I was looking through the videos of my old, on my other YouTube channel, there's actually a sighting I had 2 years ago, 2009, on January 21st of a bright ball of light. that went over downtown, flew across the city and off in the distance. So that was almost exactly 2 years to the day of my recent sighting, which was on the 22nd of January.
Okay, so you're a person who is not only around these phenomena, but you've got a camera ready and you're ready to record the events as they happen. What other dimensions are there to your contact that you're aware of? Do you have other kinds of telepathic or psychic impressions? Do you have visions about contact? Any of those kinds of things? Dreams?
Not really, no. Like, I mean, I've had a few strange dreams in my life, but I don't think anything too significant, and I don't, attribute myself any special powers or telepathic communications or anything like that. I always have a camera with me, and I'm always watching the sky.
Well, I ask because the contactees that I'm in touch with here in the Vancouver area, they talk about things like astral travel and out-of-body experiences and the relationship between what happens in those scenarios and their UFO contact, which they also catch on camera. So I'm very open to the idea or ideas about the psychic dimensions of contact and the significance of that. That, in other words, a physical event may not be as common as dimensions of psychic contact, which could be ongoing. Now, you've probably studied the subject of UFOs and ET contact over a long period of time. Is that right? You've done a lot of reading, watched the movies.
Experiences. It's. Oh, sorry. Am I coming in?
I just lost you. Can you start again? And I'm still okay. Our connection is flaking out here, and so Skype is just trying to reestablish the call. Okay, hanging up and dialing back. Hi, Fritz.
Hi.
Hi. Our connection dropped, so I was asking you to talk about psychic dimensions of contact, and that's where I lost you.
Yeah. Again, I was saying that I have had experience with astral travel and out-of-body experiences, but I think that in those states you are left vulnerable to possible outside influence, and I frankly find them to be sort of somewhat frightening.
All right, so you're not comfortable with that area. It's not something that's easy for you. Sometimes it causes you to feel fear, and as you said as well, sometimes the UFO phenomena is not entirely comfortable to be around that either.
Yeah. That's right.
Okay, well that's clear, and I mean, you're as a barometer, for the human experience of contact. I mean, it's fascinating to know and understand the different phases that people go through. I mean, in a lot of the debate about UFOs and ETs and are they good or are they bad, there's a lot of times things can be painted in a real black and white fashion, but the human experience is different. We go through a spectrum of responses. And I think these kinds of powerful encounters can challenge us to look at ourselves and to understand ourselves, our weaknesses, our strengths, and what maybe they may have profound impact on the personality and our outlook on life. So these are shaping forces. Whether we feel that they're our friends or our foes, that they do have a profound impact on us in different ways. Let's get right into the January 22nd sighting.
Okay.
And you did a great job of not only getting the shot, but you also provided some narration right, from the scene. And so, I mean, the potential that what you shot is somehow faked is pretty limited at this point. I mean, you couldn't have created those shots, got yourself in the shot, and done all those things together at the same time. In my opinion, it was this is a very authentic sighting, and it was very powerful. I mean, the object was exceptionally bright. And not only did it display a bright light, but the light seemed to pulsate. And as you mentioned on the tape, you said it was almost as if there was some kind of communication going on between the observer and what was being observed.
Yeah, at one point or a few points there was, looking back at the footage when I would say something that I was going to watch it or watch for movement or something, it seemed that at those moments is when it did something.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, there may have been some form of limited communication. It could have also just been coincidental. I'm not
right. So I mean, from a theoretical perspective, there's a lot of ways to slice and dice the experience, but from a practical perspective, it's a little different. You feel something is happening in real time while it goes on, and I'm sure you're aware of many of the sightings. For example, in Washington State, there's a location called ESETI Ranch, mm-hmm. and they have ongoing phenomena that they record and witness there, and they talk about something called a power-up, where the UFO object illuminates in different ways. It amplifies its luminous output in dramatic ways. Sometimes that are pulsing, or sometimes when they're directly over the observer, as if there was some kind of signal coming from the UFO, and that was affecting the witnesses in different ways. We live here in the southwestern British Columbia rainforest, not a tropical rainforest, but a rainforest nonetheless, meaning that at least in the city of Vancouver, we get not that many hours of sunshine, and people suffer during the winter, particularly from something called seasonal affective disorder. What do you think about the possible health benefits of UFO lights and their impact on our subconscious and our emotional health?
Well, I've never actually thought about the impact of the lights from the UFOs, but what I do hope is that maybe they're doing something to contribute to maybe cleaning up some of the chemicals that the military jets have been dumping in the sky over British Columbia mm-hmm. and Vancouver, and I do hope that they may be doing something to mitigate those effects from those chemicals, or to help clean it up maybe from the atmosphere.
Well, that's a really interesting perspective, and we see there's lots of footage online of chemtrails accompanied by orbs and different kinds of UFOs flying in and out of the trails as if there was some interaction going on, maybe some kind of preventative measure. And this is also aligned with a Canadian former NORAD officer named Stanley Fulham, who came forward this past year to talk about ET intervention in environmental cleanup, in light of the catastrophe, the BP Gulf oil spill, and the amount of contamination now that the residues of that left in the environment. It seems like big government and big business have no means to control the monster they've unleashed on the public. And so even with all the secret technologies that are supposedly in the hands of black operations in the United States, for example, none of those apparently are being brought forwards to help protect the public from these large-scale disasters. Will the ETs have to use their high technologies in order to ensure that there's future generations of human beings who can live here on the Earth? Mm-hmm. Well, I think that's very interesting. As you say, you're someone who's concerned about the environment and the changes in our society. And does this make you someone who is more compelling to the ETs if they are extraterrestrials, guiding these vehicles? Are they drawn to you particularly just because you've taken an ideological stance on some of these significant global environmental issues?
I guess that's a possibility, but I'm not so sure that they're actually attempting to contact me directly, or that they're even concerned with me. I think I might just be the guy with the camera.
Right. Well, as someone who's produced a number of UFO videos and other kinds of imaging, my interpretation of what's going on is that the UFOs intervene in the shot. If you set the camera up, they actually fly into the frame, do their antics, and leave. So the camera operator may be the facilitator for some production that was conceived on board a spaceship outside of the Earth's atmosphere.
Yeah. I made a video about that a few years ago, about looking for UFOs, and I said, if maybe it's a possibility if you just sit on a park bench with your video camera rolling, that they can detect that, and they can detect your intention to film them, and that they might actually want to be filmed. So I am open to the idea that they can sense that. They can sense someone looking for them. They can probably sense the equipment. So yeah, that's a very good possibility that they just do make themselves visible when you're ready and set up and willing to film. film them.
Yeah, so this is, this is a working theory. We're not saying that this is hard science when we make this kind of a claim, but it just seems from the human perspective, from the observer and the experiencer perspective, that this kind of intervention is what's going on. I was in Addison, Texas late last year and was fortunate to be able to capture a daylight UFO. But the way it all went down, I had my camera equipment, I put it on a tripod, went for a walk around in the neighborhood, and then I looked up and saw the UFO as if it was waiting for me, and had, as if there was a psychic link up, and it really, I was just, I had somehow on an unconscious level been, following a blueprint for, a path of instruction, do this, do that, get ready for the shot, set up, and we'll do the rest. I mean, it really just from a observer perspective, it really feels like that's what's going on. So, I'm excited, of course, overall, just like many people are excited about this kind of communication link and this download of information that's coming to us, and that the experiencers, who are ready to record these events, are acting as agents, as on the front line for knowledge and discovery. I mean, people like yourself, Fritz, are bringing the event to the public. The people who couldn't be there to see it with you, you're making that possible for them through your camera and through YouTube.
Yeah, I'm thankful to have that opportunity to, help facilitate that.
That's great. So what kind of a system did you use to record the January 22nd event?
That particular UFO, I'm operating with it's a XACTI, XACTI, full HD 1920 by 1080p, sort of a smaller camera. I usually film it on the 720 setting, just to make the video files a little bit smaller. So yeah, it's just a sort of a small little handheld HD camera.
But you did a good job. It's got some zoom on it, and
yeah, it has a pretty good zoom. I think it's a 16-time optical zoom, which is pretty good for a smaller camera. And that was an important feature when I bought the camera, was to have that good zoom on there.
Tell me, it looks like in that shoot, you're stationary. I guess you're on the deck of a house or an apartment, something like that. Did you ever have any inclination during the event to go out and try to get closer to the UFO?
Well, actually, yeah, I was up on a rooftop, and I got as close as I could. I was on the roof. I couldn't actually go down and start, running into the city to try and get closer onto the thing. I just had to film it while it was there.
But it's like, does that ever? I mean, in your experiences, is that something that's occurred to you, that you, when this is happening, when you're witnessing something like this, that you want to get closer to it?
I don't actually ever expect them to be around for longer than about 60 seconds, since that's about the amount of time that I've witnessed them being there. So I was really surprised, actually, that one stayed in the sky, appeared 2 hours later. That almost never happens. Like, you're lucky to get, to see them for 30 seconds.
All right, so the UFO videographer testimony right here, I mean, this is the truth, is that these shots are incredibly difficult to get in the first place, because, unless you've got the camera aimed in the right direction from the get-go, if the sighting's only 30 seconds in duration, you're probably going to miss the shot or only just get 1 or 2 frames. So it's actually incredibly difficult to produce these. There's always people who are complaining about, oh, how come the camera wasn't more stable? How come you didn't do this? How come you didn't do that? Well, you don't get more than one take. You get one take. You get it or you don't. It takes nerves of steel to get the shot and to get it well. So I mean, you did a great job, as I said before, about you produced the documentation, and you had the insight to go on camera and talk during the sighting with the UFO behind you as well. So I thought it was a lot of forethought on your part to get that.
That's right. Like, this was about my 5th significant sighting, so I've had a bit of experience with it, and yeah, I was lucky to get that shot.
So now, do you have contacts in your part of the island, other people with cameras who are interested, who would do sky watching and stuff like that with you?
There's one person that does some. They have a site on Facebook, Estes Skywatch, and that person is very persistent. They do a lot of sky watching. They watch it every single day. Every day there's chemtrails. They have pictures on their site on Facebook. So I watch their site to see what they come up with. But I have a few friends that sort of watch casually and are well familiar with the chemtrails and such, and they take photos and video of them.
All right. So Estes is ESTES?
Yeah, I think that's how it's spelled. Yeah, Estes Skywatch.
Okay. All right. Well, that's...
And they have good documentation of the chemtrail phenomenon on a daily basis on their site.
Okay. Well, that's good to know, and so another site that we can look up as well. I don't know if there's any other sort of general points you wanted to make about the January 22nd sighting. You certainly had lots of views on YouTube and comments. You're aware that there were other people on the island who saw the same thing and were also able to get some tape.
Yeah.
And I mean, is your perception that the second recording is of the same object that you were seeing?
I believe it's the same object. Yes. It's interesting that at the very beginning of that, the second appearance of the object, when I zoomed in, you could see what looked like a sort of a metallic body to the object that sort of hangs down below it.
Yep.
And I thought that was very interesting. And then I actually turned away to get the camera on a tripod or something. And then as I turned back, the object had turned back into a ball-shaped sphere of light. So it seems to be have some sort of shape-shifting or morphing ability to it.
Yeah, not unlike many other of the UFOs, there was some shape-shifting. So there's this cylindrical-like extension coming out of what I would describe as a bell-shaped light in those frames that you recorded. It's almost curving. The cylinder almost curves like a J at the end. I mean, who knows what it means? But there's a vertical cylinder in the second round of footage as well from the other witnesses. So this is very suggestive about possible shape. Although, I mean, in terms of aerodynamics and other sort of laws that govern the design of aircraft, we don't have a lot of man-made aircraft that are shaped like tall vertical cylinders, and I mean of enormous scale. This wasn't the size of some kind of prop airplane or
No.
hang glider. This was a substantial object. Do you have any kind of estimates in terms of range from the object or possible size?
Well, at first, when it was as a light going in and out of the clouds, that was huge. Like, I filmed the moon from up here some nights, and I think that in the sky looked about half the size of that a full moon looks like. So it was quite big, and it lit up a significant portion of the sky. It was also a weird incandescent sort of light, not like a bright halogen light or something you would see on a orangey glow to it, which I think the video captured quite accurately. Like that's really how it looked in the sky.
All right. Well, speaking to this point about the quality of the light and how the cameras capture the light, there's, as far as I can tell, there's no starburst pattern, for example, being emitted from the UFO as it's captured on the camera. In other words, it's not as if there's directional lighting that you might see like from the headlamp on a vehicle or even the lights on an airplane. The light pulses, it magnifies its luminous intensity, but not in such a way as if it were some kind of a spotlight being aimed at the observer. Yeah. And I think this is a really interesting point because I have this in my footage as well, that the UFOs magnify their intensity, but not in such a way as it's like directional lighting. So I think it's important to understand when we're trying to, we're trying to make evaluations. If you're like me, Fritz, you're asking yourself questions during the entire event, going, "What's going on?" I don't know what I'm documenting, but I'm going to document it anyways.
Yeah, that's right.
So again, we wonder what the significance is of that structure that appeared to come out of the light. This tall vertical column and something of great substance. I mean, this object was what, a mile away, 2 miles distance. What would you say was the range?
At first, I would estimate it to be about 5 kilometers away in the sky, as a rough estimate. Second time, when it reappeared, I would estimate it to be possibly as close as 3 kilometers, and then moving off into the distance at the very end, sort of towards North Island. So in the beginning, in the first shot, I was facing north.
Yep.
filming the object, and then the second time when it reappeared, I was facing west.
Mm-hmm. So you caught it from two different angles. All right.
In two positions in the sky.
Two positions in the sky. And basically, it was appearing and reappearing. In other words, it would enter the clouds and then reappear at a different location.
Yeah.
And of course, well, the shooting conditions you were under, it was all overcast. I don't know if it had been raining that day in your location.
I'm not sure.
But it was overcast. You can't see the stars. You can't really see the background. This is below the cloud layer.
Yeah.
So that can help people calculate some of the heights. I don't remember my numbers for where the cloud layer starts, but it's below the clouds. It's not above them. So certainly there's some different ways to measure. And again, you did a great job. Just that long long roll. You got 18 or 20 minutes of footage in total that you're showing. There's really something that people can sink their teeth into. It makes me wonder. I mean, one of the obvious questions is how many. It was so bright. How many other people saw it? I mean, it was so prominent the way it was. It was there for a long time. It
was actually reported in the, I think, Times Colonist. I'm not certain that it was a plane dropping 6 rescue flares to rescue a hang glider or paraglider that had crashed, and. I'd just like to know, there was not 6 different lights in the sky. It was one light that circled in and out from the clouds, and it would go up, down, left, right. It was not 6 different lights. It was not flares. There was no smoke associated with the object.
All right.
And also to note, this it did not appear over the area. They said the mountain where they said in the newspaper is like 20 kilometers to the west here, to the northwest of here. It wasn't anywhere near this object, which appeared over the Saanich Valley, right near Victoria.
Well, anyone who knows how to count from 1 to 6 can see that there's only one light in the video, and the implications that this was search and rescue or military, and that we should just forget about it because, of course, everything to do with the military is a secret. Which is the answer to everything in our world now, that it's all about secrecy. So that we should give up on trying to investigate and answer questions, because inevitably the answer is it's all just a big secret. Well, I just don't buy that, and I don't think you do either, Fritz. I think we're saying that, going through our day-to-day world, we can penetrate into mysteries as individuals, and that we should try to athletically pursue answers to these questions through exploration, discovery, recording, discussion. These are important questions of the day. This is real. It's happening. It's probably happened to our ancestors. We're all disconnected from these legacies. We should reconnect to get the answers and to understand the world we're living in a better way. One of the things I did with the soundtrack from the video that you produced is I conducted an analysis using the recording technology available to me through our modern computers. I reversed your speech recordings to produce some messages.
Again, this is Fritz Stammberger for islandonlinenews.com, and just behind me here in the sky, as you can see, is a massive UFO over the city of Victoria, British Columbia, on Vancouver Island, and today is Saturday, January the 22nd, 2011, and I'm just following the object now.
Played in reverse, the secret message says, "A monster fear."
It's now blinking bright, then off. It did 3 blinks. If I didn't know any better, I'd think it was actually blinking at me, possibly signaling that it sees me. I'm not really sure. But again, here's the object. It doesn't appear to be moving, and again, spherical, ball-shaped object.
When I play that backwards, I can hear the secret message, "They're here, we know, and they love him."
There have been no one of him. There have been no one of him. There have been no one of him.
Okay, the object is going back into the clouds again. I've been watching it now for about half an hour. as it circles about the sky, going in and out of the clouds. Now, there's no sound like that can be associated with an airplane or helicopter. The object is very bright. It's unlike anything I've ever seen. It appears to be spherical.
Played in reverse, the secret message says, "Rain at the base, a secret."
Rain at the base, a secret. Rain at the base, a secret. Rain at the base, a secret.
Were there any of those messages that were of interest to you that you thought there was something reasonable that was coming through in the unconscious level that might tell us something about your experience?
Well, although I find this reverse speech thing fairly interesting, I'm not so sure that there's anything legitimate to it. I mean, you might have, or obviously have, more experience with it than I do. But for instance, it seems to be sort of up to the interpreter to come up with what is actually being said there. And I guess in one you send me, "They're here, we know, and they love him," was the thing. Well, who's they? Who's we? You know, it's sort of all left up to interpretation. It's
my experience that people can verify the information in the messages when they're presented with the opportunity to do so. That people will say that the messages describe events from 60 years in the past, or in the case of the Iraq War, they'll describe events 2 years into the future with accuracy. And so, you know, I'm throwing it out there to you. I'm saying, hey, I found this information. Yeah, I'm just a human observer, but I'm able to interpret what you're saying to me during our interview today with accuracy, and you have good faith that I'll do that with accuracy. That in other words, if you say something, I'll be able to successfully interpret it. So if that's the premise, then certainly, you know, there's other kinds of interpretations that can be done with accuracy as well, just using a human observer. I think that what was significant to me was that the messages cycled through a number of different emotional phases, that in some ways it appeared to me as if you felt drawn to the phenomena, and at the same time you also felt it was kind of repulsive and frightening. And it was representative to me of, you know, being out in the field myself, having made my own recordings and having my own contact experiences. I could identify with somebody, you know, having mixed emotions while they were experiencing UFO contact.
Yeah, for sure. I think anyone would experience that.
And as well, I think there were some interesting references. I don't know what they mean. As you mentioned earlier, you know, the word "they" comes up in one of the messages, as if there's some kind of knowledge about other entities who are involved in the sighting. You know, like hypothetically, the operators of the UFO, and that there's some unconscious knowledge about those operators. At some level, there's already some established knowledge about the nature of those operators. It's not, in other words, that we're not looking at a robot, but it's a signature of the operations of some kind of intelligence, human intelligence, angelic intelligence. I don't know, but that it seemed to me as if you did possess some kind of understanding at a deeper level. And so, you know, it inspired my curiosity. And there was another message about a base and a base and a secret. Well, in the lore of the Lower Mainland, I mean, one of the things people talk about here regarding UFOs is that there are bases in the area, and you know, even on Vancouver Island, that there's you know, this is the you know, allegorical statements of the people who live here, that there's like mountains that open up and the UFOs fly in and out, not unlike what happens at the East City Ranch, where Mount Adams is known to have a portal, and the UFOs fly there, and people film the portal opening and closing. I have video of the portal on Mount Adams, so I'm open to the idea that there's a base or bases in the area. Do you have any thoughts about the possibility about UFO bases on Vancouver Island?
I'm sure that's a possibility. Like, I mean, even going back to the indigenous peoples here with their legends of the Thunderbirds or the protecting spirits that fly around the island. A good friend of mine, he had a significant sighting out here. He was somewhere on a beach or whatever, and they were watching one of these bright balls of light, you know, sort of fly by at a low altitude, and he said, "Look, there's a UFO," and one of these you know, indigenous peoples turned to him and said, "Oh, that's the protector spirit that flies around the island and protects us." So they were already familiar with it as a spirit being, we might interpret it, you know, as a military craft or something, but they have their own interpretation.
All right, and so this ties back into our earlier discussion about the psychic dimensions of phenomena and spiritual connections with the ET intelligence or whoever the operators are of these, but that they're real and that they're known to the First Nations, the people who've been here much longer than the Western people. That this groundwork was already laid. It's part of the culture. It's part of the legacy. In other words, for First Nations observer, the UFO experience could be something quite different. In other words, they have at least there's some cultural reference points.
Yeah.
In the West, it's the unfortunate cultural reference points that we're trying to change are all about marginalizing the observer and the quality of their evidence. The Vancouver UFO Examiner is all about bringing the members of the public forward to help to share insight and to help educate and create an environment where it's safe to talk about these things, and that it's something of respect and honor. It's not something that leads us to question the mental capacity of the witness. So again, the balls of light. This was one of my first experiences when I was a teenager. I don't know if you spend any time in Vancouver, but Jericho Beach Park is an amazing location for all kinds of phenomena, and I was a witness with another friend when we were teenagers down there at dusk of a ball of light that flew over at treetop level. It moved intelligently, and I could say, well, it was like a bird in the sense that it kind of it moved in one direction, but it wobbled as it traveled. Mm-hmm. But it was emitting all this light as if it was a ball of light traveling like a bird, and we watched it for 15 minutes. Neither of one of us had cameras, of course, but the sighting was about 15 minutes in duration, and it flew over our heads and over downtown, and it inspired us with a great feeling of that that we were experiencing something that was beyond what we were being taught in school or what our parents had told us. We were having a breakthrough experience. We were making contact in the wild, the wild of our park in Vancouver. We were making contact with real phenomena beyond anything in our own experience or what people knew and understood. And so it was a very positive and uplifting thing. The ball of light, and what you've got on tape now is a massive ball of light with more to it than just is more to it. There's structure coming out of it. It's amplifying. I'm sure your sense is that, and I think I've mentioned this before, that there's more to come. That there's more possible sightings, more experiences, and more knowledge that's coming our way. This isn't something that's going to go away anytime soon.
No, the balls of light seem to be fairly common. That's probably the most common sighting out here. Is just these balls of white light that can grow and decrease in intensity. That seems to be the one that most people have experience with out here.
Mm-hmm. And so what do you for people who are out there who are maybe who are new to UFO phenomena or are sort of on the fence in terms of being skeptics about is this real or not, they don't have necessarily any of their own personal experience, do you have any advice or guidance? As someone who's successful, been involved in two major sightings, the Oak Bay and this new one in Victoria, can you say anything to those people who are interested, who are curious? What would you say to them?
I would, to be fair, issue a little bit of caution when dealing with these things. We don't know what they are. From my point of view, there is a the possibility that they may be demonic, they may be black budget military programs, and you may not necessarily want to get involved with these things. Even just having people call you that nutty UFO guy can be a little bit disheartening. But I do like that they sort of raise the level of wonder and curiosity in people's minds, and I think that from that aspect, it is a positive thing, to be looking for this and be open-minded about it.
So in general, maintaining an open mind perhaps opens the doorways to opportunities that people might otherwise not encounter. Some of the simple things people say is if no one looks up, you'll never see anything in the sky. So
yeah.
Being open to the possibility. So again, you're a little bit concerned about that there might be some stigma associated with being connected to a UFO report or being known as a witness to these phenomena. It bothers you in some way.
Yeah, I think that there's so much we don't know about this phenomenon, that, you know, we just have to be cautious when interpreting these events. I mean, the Bible talks about that there will be signs and wonders in the sky, as we get closer to the end times, and to not be deceived by such things, you know. And I'm a Christian, I read my Bible, so I'm cautious about these things. I'm open to the idea that they may be demonic, and I just approach it with a level of caution, but an open mind at the same time.
All right. Well, so as you say, you bring a Christian philosophy to your experiences, and that it's helping you, giving you tools to understand in the absence of other resources. And this is, again, it's part of the human experience. I mean, what we bring to the encounter impacts how we interpret it. Many people with very deep ties to their religious traditions have also been involved in UFO contact. I'm sure you've heard of Travis Walton and Fire in the Sky, and he's from a Mormon background, and these possibilities that the Mormon philosophy explains some of the things that happened in his encounter in terms of encounters with angels that happened in the past in their history. So yeah, I mean, you're really by bringing this information forward, by taking a stand, by creating Island Online News, and Island Online News is becoming a forum, for presenting these experiences to the public. You're taking a leadership stance on this issue. I mean, whether you like it or not, whether you're going to enjoy all of the different kinds of feedback that you're going to get as a result of this, it seems to me that circumstances, put you in a place, where you've been around more than one major event. And Oak Bay was definitely a major setting because that object was so close, so close to you guys. I mean, there's something powerful happening around you. And in my mind, it really makes you a, how to say it, you're someone to watch for as we go into we're in the new decade now, and you're initiating 2011 with this massive UFO sighting and the video of it. You're really setting a bar for other sightings and phenomena that are going to happen in the province this year and in coming years. So I'm excited that you've got some infrastructure in place. islandonlinenews.com is there as a news resource. It's established on the web, and you're growing and building the audience for that. And you're bringing very exciting news. I can't tell you how excited some of the major contactees I know online were when they brought it to my attention that you got this footage. You may know people like Allison Cruz in Pennsylvania, who has ongoing contact and hours of high definition night vision video. She's very excited to see this happening here in Canada, because she knows it validates her experiences, and what she's reporting is not just isolated to one little place. It's global phenomena, and more people are making contact and taking the trouble to develop resources for public education and consumption, to stimulate public debate and interest in the topic, and its relationship to the other important topics in our world, such as why are we polluting our skies and water and ecosystems with chemtrails that the public doesn't want. What are the agendas that are driving the development of society and our understanding of the environment, and can we make breakthroughs in our lifetime, to heal the wounds caused by our wars and our indifference, to create a better way of life. I'm inspired by what you've done, and I'm looking forward to seeing more material come from you this year and in the future. Do you have any sort of final comments you'd like to add while we're on the topic?
Maybe just perhaps as a final note, I think that we should watch for a sort of a false alien invasion. I think that if there is some sort of attack or event that happens related to these craft, that I think that could be something that has been set up by governments for a specific purpose. And I think that it could be a sort of a fake alien invasion event that might happen in the next 2 years. It sounds crazy now, but with all the things we've been seeing in the last year and even in this year already, with the natural disasters and with the economic situation, with that's sort of all been orchestrated, that's not accidental. Nothing happens by accident. So I think that we just need to be aware that and sort of formulate our own perceptions of what's happening around us, and not just sort of turn to CNN or Fox News to tell us what's happening with these events.
All right, that's Fritz Stammberger from Island Online News, the witness who documented a major UFO sighting from January 22nd over the capital of British Columbia, Victoria, BC. It wasn't his first event. It wasn't the first video he was involved with that contained an amazing UFO. We're looking forward to hearing more from Fritz as time goes on. We have to wrap up for today. Fritz, thank you so much for joining us on the Secret Message Report. I'm Jon Kelly, and we'll be back again.
Thanks, John.